Hey everyone, it's Chris. Welcome back to my channel. This is my first video of the new year, and in this video I want to share some tips for how to get your finances ready for the new year. These are things that I try to do every year, and we know the past few years have been pretty crazy and no one really knows what's going to happen. But no matter where you are in your financial journey, I think it's always a good idea to take a look at your personal finances at the start of every year. Now we can start things off with number one, which is calculating your net worth. Now this is something that I like to do every year just because I think your net worth is a good measure of your financial health. It's not the only factor, but I think it's a good starting point. It's calculated by adding up all of your assets and then subtracting all of your liabilities. So assets includes things that you own that have value. This could be cash, stocks, cryptocurrencies, real estate. So those are some examples of assets. And then you have your liabilities, which is your debts, like your student loan debt, personal loans you took out, credit card debt, mortgages, home loans. Now, I actually kind of think the word net worth sounded kind of snobby. You hear the word net worth a lot of the times for like these millionaires or billionaires. But honestly, I think there's value in tracking your net worth, no matter what the number is, whether it's $100,000 or $10,000 or even $100, it doesn't really matter. I think a really good first step is to add up everything you own, subtract all of your debts, calculate this number just to see, where you are. And then also, I think it's kind of cool to see how that number changes over time. Hopefully it does change over time. It goes up, hopefully. Let's be real, sometimes tracking our finances can be stressful and overwhelming, which is why I want to introduce you to Magic Mind. Magic Mind is the world's first productivity shot containing nootropics, adaptogens, and other natural ingredients to help you stay focused and concentrated. If you've seen my last few videos, you'll know that I've been using it on a consistent basis. It's a really good start for my morning routine. I use it as a replacement for coffee and sometimes as a supplement to coffee as well. It's tasty. They got matcha in it, which I really like. They have other cool ingredients like ashwagandha. If you want to check it out, use the code in my description below for 20% off. Try it out. If you don't like it, you can get a full refund, no questions asked. For additional details, you can check out their website below. I'll link it in the description. Hopefully it can boost your focus and keep you more motivated and help you with your finances. Now back to the video. All right, so number two is all about calculating your income and expenses. And I know it's kind of boring, but I think it's really important so that you can understand where you stand financially, just knowing how much money you make and knowing what you spend on a month-to-month basis, right? So most people work some sort of 9 to 5. So hopefully you should be able to have a rough idea of what your pre-tax income is, as well as your take-home pay. Now, obviously your job is going to be your main source of income, but if you have any side hustles or passive income streams, dividends you make from any stock holdings, this would all fit in that income category. Now I just checked and I personally make around $150 a month in dividends every month just because of my portfolio. I've certainly seen a lot of other people that make way more than that per month. I do think it's something that's really cool every month having these dividends come in. I kind of fell in love with this concept of companies paying you just for holding their stock a long time ago. It could be really cool if you could have a portfolio that just pays you in dividends every month and you can just live off the dividends. I think that's kind of my end goal. Now obviously with that, expenses are also really important. There's going to be 3 main categories for your expenses. That'll be housing, transportation, and food. There is power in knowing these numbers, right? So I think the beginning of the year is a great time to recheck all of these numbers and make sure they're at where you want them to be. That'll put yourself in the best position to really understand where you spend too much, where you spend too little, and change your strategy accordingly. All right, moving along to number 3, which is assessing your credit card strategy. Now, credit cards, they can be pretty double-edged, right? Because on the one hand, they can provide convenience and a good way to build credit. There's a lot of protections in credit cards as well, such as purchase protections, extended warranties, travel protections, and these are all built into a lot of credit cards. You can also get cash back on a lot of different categories, such as dining or travel. So it's typically better than using something like a debit card. It's also good too if you're into credit card churning. There's a lot of promotions right now from companies like American Express, Capital One, Chase, where they'll have these really elevated sign-on offers just to acquire new customers, right? So a lot of these offers allow people like myself to rack up a ton of points to essentially travel for free. Now I've made a couple of videos about some really cool credit cards that I really like, so feel free to check those out if you have some time. Now on the other hand, and this is a part where I talk about why it's a double-edged sword, credit cards can also lead to debt, right? And huge financial problems if not used responsibly. So, it's kind of crazy. Right now, the average American holds a ton of credit card debt. And if you look at the data, it's actually on the rise, which is really scary, right? So you have to be careful because it's very easy to, overspend with the credit card. It doesn't really feel real when you're swiping. That's why they always say psychologically it's always better to use cash to make transactions just because, giving away cash hurts more. It feels more real than swiping your credit card. On top of that, credit cards usually have really high interest rates. So usually anywhere between 15 to 25%. So a good tip to keep in mind for 2023 is to pay back your statement balance every month so that you don't accrue any interest when you're using your credit card. Another good tip is actually to have a low utilization. Another good tip is to actually have a low utilization rate for your credit cards, right? Anywhere between 1 to 20%. This actually affects your credit score, how much of your total credit limit you're actually using. So try to keep a lower utilization rate to boost your credit score. And then finally, like I said, if you're actually following these rules, like paying back your statement balance every month, having a low utilization rate, don't be afraid to shop for new credit cards if you're into that churning game, right? So there's a lot of strong and really high sign-on bonuses right now that you can get a ton of value from. So don't be afraid to shop for credit cards too if you're looking for a new credit card. Just remember that obviously only do this if you pay back your balance every month. Otherwise, it won't be worth it for you. Now, number 4 is also pretty boring, but this is building an emergency fund. There's all these talks about, the 2023 recession, the market crash, the real estate crash, yada, yada, yada. And the reality is no one knows, right? No one knows, and these are all just things like designed to get you to click and get interested and yada, 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 but no one can really predict when this will happen. Here's what we do know, right? We know that interest rates are rising. We know that the Federal Reserve will continue to fight inflation, right? We also know that there's lots of layoffs happening, as you've seen in the news, and we don't know how many more there could be in 2023. So the point I'm trying to make is that, life is unpredictable and it's important to prepare for anything that can come your way, right? So a good number to aim for to save is about 3 to 6 months of, your living expenses. I mean, you should be good for any crazy situation that comes up. I typically like to go for a little bit higher, about 9 months to a year, just to be on the safe side because you never know what will happen. But this is how you protect yourself. Fingers crossed you don't get laid off or anything, but at least this way you'll prepare yourself and your family to have enough time to look for a new job in the event that that happens. Number 5 is to fight inflation. Obviously, we've heard that we're having really high inflation right now, and the best way to fight that is to invest in assets, right? As inflation increases, assets such as like real estate, precious metals, stocks, generally can hold their value better than cash or bonds. I think a really good strategy is to dollar cost average into index funds, ticker symbols VTI, VOO, they're very safe. And over time, over the long term, they should go up in value. That's going to be my strategy for investing moving forward. If you want to be a little bit more speculative, you can dollar cost average into Bitcoin and Ethereum as well. But obviously, whenever you invest, have a long-term mindset and just pretend the money that you invest is gone pretty much. That's how I like to think about it. It's important to diversify your investments as well, right? So have some exposure to stocks, have some exposure to real estate. If you want to invest in REITs, have some exposure to cryptocurrency, and honestly, even have some exposure to cash. I know I said you have to fight inflation, but if you're holding a lot of cash, that's a more conservative move. Make sure you have your money right now in high yield savings accounts. I've talked to so many people that are just holding their cash in like these standard checkings accounts where they're literally getting like less than 0.1% interest. Right now, there's a lot of great high yield savings accounts such as Citizens Access, Capital One 360, Citi Accelerate is another good one that are yielding above 3% right now. But at the very least, I think you should at least have your cash in something like that just so you can fight inflation. Something else that's really important to keep in mind is lifestyle inflation, right? We talk a lot about monetary inflation, but I kind of want to talk about lifestyle inflation, or something known as lifestyle creep. This is a type of inflation we don't really hear a lot about, but this is essentially when you make more money and then you adjust your standard of living according to how much you make, right? So maybe it's, you get a new job and then you immediately go buy a new car, and it's really tricky. That's why they call it creep, because it kind of creeps up on you and you don't even realize it. But just be mindful of that, right? If you're making more money, make sure that you're not going crazy with your spending, which is why I said make sure you track your spending on the first place, just because you don't want lifestyle creep to negatively affect your personal finances. It's something that I have to remind myself at the start of every year. My income has slowly risen up, since I graduated, but I try to live frugally. I think we don't really need as much as we think we do a lot of the times, but these are just kind of my philosophies for 2023. These are my goals, and this is how I'm preparing my finances. Just giving myself reminders about things like lifestyle creep, tracking my net worth, tracking all of my income and my expenses, investing, trying to fight inflation, having a solid emergency fund in case anything goes wrong, which everyone says it will be. So that's kind of my philosophy. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later. Like the video and subscribe.